Welcome back. Chris Nash here from LSEO. This is our final installment in our 6-week series on providing tips and tricks, especially during this tough time together, for digital marketing strategies on how to grow your business, or at least in this point, survive, take market opportunity from your competition while they're sitting on the sidelines. But ultimately, the idea is to provide you guys with some insight into growing your companies, your firms, your practices, and making sure you can navigate these difficult economic times that we're all going through. So I put a presentation together today to talk about technical SEO. So let's jump right in. Technical SEO, first of all, it obviously it sounds technical, and it is. But what I really want to accomplish today is I want to walk through the presentation and show you guys what it really implies on a website, so you can at least think about it. I'm not expecting you to go in there and make these changes necessarily on your own, but I want you to understand that there's more going on than just the content on the site itself from an optimization standpoint. And ultimately, we have to think about that when we're building our websites for success and ultimately trying to get them to rank in Google to generate traffic. I don't want to, at this point, you guys know who I am, but just from a really brief summary, I'm Chris Nash. I'm the president of LSEO. We're a full-service digital marketing agency that specializes in search engine optimization, paid media marketing or paid ads across search and social, and web design and development with those marketing tactics in mind. So when we think about SEO, and I know we've gone over this in previous presentations, what we're ultimately trying to do is serve up the content and serve up the website in exactly the format that Google wants. So technical SEO is a big part of that. So when we're thinking about optimization factors outside of content and outside of general optimization on the site, that's really what we're talking about with technical SEO. We're going to jump right into it and have a good understanding. I'm going to give you the framework for it in this presentation. Obviously, if you guys want more detail, please reach out to me and we can talk about that and how that relates to your site. Because this stuff there are books on technical SEO alone, so we don't want to go too far in the weeds today. But I do want to give you the broad brushstrokes here. So obviously, behind the scenes on any page, I think you guys understand this. There are tags, there's code, there's HTML, etc. That's obvious to all of us. But how we structure what shows up on that page and what's part of the actual website itself in the coding makes a big difference for SEO. I think most of us understand that the titles and the descriptions, at least in terms of on-page content, is important. But behind the scenes, even though this has been slightly deprioritized by Google, we have to make sure that the meta titles and meta tags and meta descriptions also match up to the content on the page so we can give Google it back. But to be honest, technical SEO really goes beyond that, because that's something that really anyone with a basic SEO background understands. So let's look at some of these other considerations. In terms of on-page content too, one other quick side note here. The actual tags you put on the page, the title tag really should be in an H1, and then you have your subtitles underneath that. So if you're writing a long form piece, you want to make sure that you break up the piece into its appropriate text categories, and you do that through coding behind the scenes that represents headers. So the most prominent header on the page is your H1. It's your title, for example, of the page, and it lets Google know that the actual content itself has a topic, and that's really important because you obviously want to let Google know what that page or website is about. But let's go beyond that. So from a technical standpoint, when Google arrives at a page, they're looking for certain things. They want to make sure that the actual content on the page is a big check mark, but then they start looking at the technical pieces. So simple things, for example, your website must be secure. So the HTTPS is vital these days. In almost every competitive industry, the top 10 rankings all have secure pages. So that is a must these days. It's not just about having security when you go through the checkout process on an e-commerce website. The entire website from top to bottom needs to be secure. People do not want to fill out a form online unless they know that form is secure. And we all know the implications of privacy these days with all the social platforms and everything else. People are really concerned about security. And from an SEO standpoint, Google ostensibly requires security on the site. So that HTTPS is really important. We want that lock at the top of the page to signal both from a usability standpoint and a technical SEO standpoint that the site's secure. Beyond that, we obviously need to make sure that the pages on the site are active. We don't want what's called a 404 page or a broken page. So if you're browsing around on your average website and you click into a link and that link no longer exists, or that PDF document's been removed, or that website URL's been changed, and it serves up a 404 error, that's a bad signal to Google. You do not want Google to hit a dead end like that. So cleaning that stuff up, avoiding what's called a 404 page. And I'm going to show you an example of this. You guys can get playful with this when you actually build your 404 pages, but the real goal is to avoid having 404 pages at all. So if there are old links out there on the web that point to content that no longer exists, clean up, and at minimum, if you get rid of a URL, you must redirect that URL. There's kind of an old principle in SEO that if you get rid of a URL, well, really, the principle says don't get rid of URLs. But the reality is that sometimes that's a necessity. And what I encourage you to do is please redirect, or what's called 301 redirect, that old URL to the new one, so you don't lose that page authority and it passes it over to the new page. So here's an example of a page we have literally on our site. It's Baby Yoda. So when you go here and you land on a broken page, it actually serves up this page and lets you know that the page is broken. Moving forward to another element of technical SEO is mobile page speed. I've already told you guys this in prior presentations, but Google is ranking sites 100% through the mobile experience. And that's called the mobile first index, and it happened in the middle of 2019. It doesn't matter that half the traffic almost comes from desktop still, or non-mobile devices. 100% of your rank is driven through mobile. So from a technical standpoint, you better make sure that your actual mobile speed is up to par for two reasons. Most of the stuff comes back to usability. These days, Google is trying to understand the true human experience to dictate what is given the proper SEO opportunity to rank. If the site's got good usability, the content's engaging, people stick around, and it's valuable, Google's going to rank it. That's what they're really looking for. They're looking for true, useful, and engaging content. So at the same time, if the website experience is poor and you don't have good page speed, that's going to be a problem. So what Google's trying to do is they're trying to translate these technical elements into normal everyday usage and then govern their search results as a result of that. So mobile page speed, super, super important. Literally, if you do a search for Google page speed, you can go online and type your URL into their own tool, and you can see how fast it is. It's really easy to do. Structured data is the next piece. I think this sounds complicated, but basically what it means is there are different data types on the internet. For example, if you are selling an e-commerce product, you can set the structured data up and what's called schema in the background to give that back to Google in exactly the way, so you can see the reviews on a product, the price on a product, the availability, etc. As it relates to a recipe, there might be ingredients in the recipe, obviously the title of the recipe, and other elements that you can insert into the page, pre-populate in Google. Here's another example. If you write an article on the web, author might be part of your structured data and publication date. That way, when somebody is looking up an article, they immediately know who the author is and when it was published. And that data gets served back to Google, and we actually have an example of that. So Nike here, when you actually search for Chuck Taylors on the internet, look at this awesome data that's populating here under the search result and how it stands out from the others. So these other sites like DSW, they are not doing structured data properly. So you can see, check this out. You have your rating, you have your reviews, you have your price, and it literally tells you whether or not the product's in stock. That information is literally being passed back to the search results, which is really impressive. So I encourage you to look into schema and structured data and make sure that when the data type supports it, as is the case with e-commerce, you make sure that you're publishing that data so it ends up sticking it back into the search results, and you get a much more developed and holistic view at the search results as a result of that, obviously. There's a great tool out there from technicalseo.com. It's a schema markup generator. I encourage you guys to look that up. It'll actually tell you how to structure this if there's any confusion around it, and it'll give you the coding and the requirements to make that happen. So this is the URL, technicalseo.com/tools/schema-markup-generator. But obviously, if you Google it, it'll be easier to find that way under technicalseo.com. Awesome tool. We use it all the time. Now, how does Google really understand what's on the website? You know, when they arrive on the home page, we're trying to let Google know where all the URLs and where all the content is on the site. The way that gets accomplished is by Google seeing a sitemap. It's literally a digital representation of all the pages on the site, and Google lets you tell them through this file where those pages sit. And the way that you do that is through what's called a robot.txt file. So this robot.txt file tells Google what the robot or what the Google's actually spider, when it goes out and looks at sites, it actually tells the spider what to do, whether or not it should index the site or not, where the robot.txt file is. So I just gave you a simple example here on lseo.com/robots.txt. This is literally where Google looks for it, and you can publish this information right in here. And this is a real world example of what we put in there. We're obviously not trying to restrict Google at all. So all we have in ours is a link to the sitemap that Google can find, and then they automatically know where to look for that. So I understand that these elements are really, I mean, obviously the whole point of this is to discuss the technical nature of it. But my real point in this webinar is to express to you that there are other things going on behind the scenes that aren't just about the content. So Google, I'm sure you guys have all heard of Google Analytics. Google's got a development version of analytics for guys like me, and for those of us that understand the technical piece, it's called Google Search Console. So Google Search Console actually lets you tell Google a lot of this information in advance. So it lets you upload your sitemaps, for example. It lets you tell Google when you're making changes to content. It lets you see when the last time Google visited the site, and when its spider went to your website last to actually update the content. Little tricks and tips like that are available in those platforms that lend themselves to technical SEO. So that's the real point of today, is to express that there's other elements going on. And I highly encourage you guys to think about that when you're building, and then ultimately have a partner who understands the technical piece, because it absolutely does matter. You must structure the site, the architecture, and the elements to make sure that you're giving it back to Google exactly the way they want. And that's really important. So that's really the overarching goal of today's presentation. I really thank you guys, as always, for being a part of this. We've really enjoyed putting these presentations together and giving back to the community. As always, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. We're also doing a giveaway today. So for anyone that registered for today's webinar, at the same time, anyone who wants this free template, we're giving away a content checklist where you can literally, when you write something for the purposes of your blog or your website, we give you an SEO checklist to run through and score yourself to make sure you're doing it correctly. So it lends itself to technical SEO. But like I said, any questions, we absolutely want you guys to reach out and engage with us. It's been a pleasure to do this. Please stay safe, take care of yourselves, and thank you guys so much.